Okay, so marketing that focuses on using key leaders to drive your brand's message to the larger market is called social media marketing. We all know that, but rather than marketing directly to a larger group of consumers, you instead inspire, hire, or pay influencers to get out the word for you. This has changed the way people buy things forever. Roughly 67% of marketers report that they are engaged in some form of influencer marketing, a number that's likely to grow even more as social media influencers gain more mainstream exposure. With demand on the rise, the influencer economy is shifting towards more streamlined solutions. That's where today's conversation comes into the picture, and that's where the need for people who work in this field comes in. If I was to assign the core responsibility for a good marketing associate who works in the influencer marketing field, it would be simply to find creative ways to remove or reduce cynicism that people associate with other types of marketing, whether it be hoardings, whether it be direct marketing through the TV ads, or any other sort of marketing. And find better ways to pitch directly to the right demographic. But what makes this role so important, or more importantly, how can you get this job? This conversation is going to go a little deep into that aspect and be all about that. Joining me for this conversation is a young professional who's in this industry, who also happens to be my flatmate, hopefully in the future also. Yash Chitravanshi, how's it going, man?
Hey Dushar, how's it going? Thank you for
Uh,
inviting me here.
uh,
It
Welcome to the
feels nice.
show.
I hope. Thank you. Feels nice. I hope we can talk something, informational, which helps people here because I haven't
Yeah,
done that in the longest of times. So,
let's hope to add some value here. Uh, Tell me a bit about your professional journey up until now. Also, how about a lot while you're explaining that, you also explain what influencer marketing exactly is. Over to you.
yeah, so I come from a science and engineering background, and I've done my engineering in information technology. So 4 years of grinding in that. During the end of my years, I found my interest towards data science and have done a couple of internships in data science in firms like Music Bar and WNS. So yeah, I mean, during the end stages of engineering, I realized that I don't want to get into a tech job. I really want to focus on uh, the creative aspects that I might have, right? So I was really interested into photography and stuff like that. So I took up photography after engineering ended for 6 months because that is
Okay. Hmm.
that is the period I thought uh, I'll be
It's
able
a
to
time
earn
to
something.
explore.
Yeah, it's the time to explore.
Okay.
I'll be able to earn something
Hmm.
and make a way out. But 6 months, I think creative field like photography are a little less, and I think it requires some additional investments like a fancy ass camera and other equipments which cost you a lot. I did not want to put my parents in that pressure to help me get that. I wanted to earn that on my own. So then I started applying for jobs in December, and this really fascinating job application came on my page from a company called One Impression, where it was a client servicing role. So the description was that you'll get to work on different brands, plan their marketing strategies in all sorts of creative ways, and utilize influencers to essentially get that job done. And I found
Hmm.
that really interesting. I thought that the creative bits that I have can be utilized here, if not in photography. So I went for my interview. Surprisingly, it was for a data scientist role. So because I was short on time, I really wanted to get a job quickly. So I took that job up
Hmm.
in having this in the back of my head that I will probably make a shift eventually to the client servicing role. Uh,
Hmm.
so I started as a data scientist in that company, and then in 6 months I eventually made that shift because we were a small team back then, and I had to put my legs out here side in the client servicing side, right? So my CEO also realized that I have a knack of doing this, And that is how, I
This
started,
journey started.
my journey started. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
remember you mentioning this to me that you were more interested in the client servicing role because it gave you an opportunity to interact with a lot of creative people also, right? Because you were always into the photography side of things, and you wanted to interact with people who knew a little more about that, right?
absolutely. And also from the engineering aspect, when I was in
Mm-hmm.
companies like Music Man, WNS, I really enjoyed the client servicing bit when it came to data as well. Because, when you work with different clients, you get to know and pick a lot of things from the clients on how they operate. And there it's a lot more information and knowledgeable, which I truly believe when you're working with different clients. You're just able to pick up so many things from so many different brands, which are from various categories.
Yeah.
So this was also one thing that really motivated me towards client servicing.
What about the second question? Like, just explain what influencer marketing is to the people.
Yeah, so influencer marketing is a part of social media marketing where
Mm-hmm.
I pick up people who have the know-how of the brand or the product I want to promote. Uh, so say for example, right now you're taking uh, my we're doing this podcast session now. Eventually you'll be, if we do this right, you will
Mm-hmm.
have the knowledge of how podcasts are made, how what topics to be picked up, what questions to be asked. So when I need a podcaster on say a Spotify, I will come to you because you have that know-how, you've posted enough, and people now find you credible, and you have that merit to be talking about that. And also that because you're my friend, you're much more relatable to me than any other seller. So say for
Mm-hmm.
example, now a Shah Rukh Khan promoting Santro, right? Now he does that. He's been doing that since forever. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Hyundai as a brand gets that credibility, gets that stature. Oh wow, that Shah Rukh Khan is promoting me, and it reaches out to masses. But until unless my friend uses a Santro, I might
Mm-hmm.
not, buy a Santro because I will not relate to a Shah Rukh Khan buying a Santro. It
Yeah.
is it is that simple essentially of how
It's not
influencer marketing
relatable.
works.
Yeah.
Correct. It's not relatable.
Yeah, yeah. Because we know Shah Rukh Khan would definitely not be using that Santro, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
uh, that is that. Okay, so quickly moving on
Hmm.
to the second question, that
Hmm.
every
Hmm.
brand in 2020 can possibly leverage influencer marketing to grow their market share or acquire more users. This is a statement
Hmm.
that I read online.
Hmm.
And I stated like the 67% metric at the start of the podcast also. So, what is your viewpoint when I say this statement? And how is
Hmm.
influencer marketing any different from possibly all the other kinds of marketing that every company is into? What's your view on
Sure. So I'll take up the second question first,
that?
where you ask, how is it different from any other kind of marketing? First, is it that it is very relatable? Now, I'll ask you this question: how many
Mm,
times during driving or sitting in a car have you noticed a billboard and you have that retention capacity of that billboard in your head, right? Or
mm.
or a
Hardly.
radio ad that is playing or a radio
Uh,
ad that's playing. Now
uh,
we're slowly moving towards using aux cables in our cars, so
uh,
we're not listening to radios. And
yeah.
because we're so much on our phones right now that
Mm,
hardly noticing that billboard or a print ad is, I think, really difficult. Now when you're using YouTube, I read this stat one somewhere that 40% of the people use ad blocking technologies. So
yeah.
you know now, this is how the other traditional ways of marketing are diminishing in a certain sense, and
They're
influencer
somehow
marketing is
failing.
growing. Correct. And influencer marketing is booming because now when
Mm,
Geo has come in, we are able to penetrate in more regional cities, get that social media access to more people, right?
uh,
So that is how we have a lot of people who are now. So I think 3.4 billion people in the world have access to social media right now. You know, so that is a
that's where you
huge number
start
there to
from.
leverage. I'm sorry.
That's where you start from. That's like your biggest funnel, and then you start targeting accordingly.
Correct. And
Uh,
influencer marketing, I think, is more targeted. Say, for
mm,
example, if I want to promote a beauty brand, I will go to a beauty influencer. who talks about beauty on their feed, right? Similarly for fashion, similarly for photography. If I want to say promote a brand like Canon, I will go towards a photography influencer, right?
Hmm.
But if Canon does a billboard, now of course I'd want to. They will have their advantages, but then it is not that targeted. But of course, the mass reach is always there. But I believe influencer marketing is very targeted. Also, fun fact: influencer marketing for every dollar spent gives you about 5x or to 11x times of revenue on that.
Okay, so like it makes sense return on investment wise also, right?
Correct. So
Yeah.
it is super cheap, and it
Hmm.
is the average turnaround time to get content out rolling is super less. Yeah. I mean, to build a TV ad, to build a print or a billboard, it requires a lot of planning and publishing, and it takes a
Hmm.
lot of time to get that done to the end stage. Now, in influencer marketing, I can call up an influencer today and say, you have to do this challenge with
Uh,
this brand
uh,
tomorrow, and
uh,
there'll be a video ready. So it's super
uh,
easy. So not
yeah.
just influencer marketing, brands also use influencers to just get that content, get the user generated content,
Hmm.
and put it on their feed. Maybe
It's
not
a
promoting
win-win
on their.
from both sides.
Correct, correct.
Uh, uh. Acha, so like just going by what you said, I had one question
Mhm,
from what you said. You said that
mhm,
billboard might give me access to masses, but
mhm.
your influencer marketing effort will allow me to reach directly to the target audience. So
Correct.
I see that being an advantage for influencer marketing also, but that could be a disadvantage also in acquiring new kinds of customer also, right? Like a Canon, if they're only probably uh, if they're doing a very sharp targeted approach from, let's say,
Mhm,
someone who talks about photography on their YouTube channel or
mhm.
Instagram page, if they're doing that, then they're targeting to people who already have generated some interest in photography and then coming there. What if
Hmm.
you want to generate that curiosity first? So wouldn't traditional marketing approaches be better for that angle?
Yeah, no, I mean, so this is one approach that I talked about, that if Canon wants to sell a camera, which is
Hmm.
a little professional, then I reach out to those photographers. But
Hmm.
if Canon wants to generate that interest, then
Hmm.
I maybe go to a fashion influencer who clicks those sort of pictures using that camera,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So I can open my areas of
Uh,
my horizons of targeting the
uh,
influencers. Of course, there will be different influencers who can target to
hmm.
something similar. They will have a commonality between them. So that is of course there.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Cool. I think moving on to the third question. Like my third question would be just tell me about where do you start if you start working in the
Mhm,
influencer marketing field,
mhm.
where you are in that growth path and how do you see growth, like how what's the growth path like for someone who joins this industry?
Yeah, so you can either join as an intern or an account executive. Now, uh, when you're joining as an account executive, this is from the personal experience I'm talking about. You're mostly involved into the execution bit of the campaigns where you're essentially getting the content out of the creators. There is
Hmm.
no strategizing bit on say for example Canon comes to me that I want to do I want to reach this audience
Hmm.
with a budget of X numbers, then
Hmm.
how do I do it? Then I
Yeah.
strategize that. I pull out the numbers, I pull out the influencers, but then the account executive bit will be, where they're talking to the influencers and uh, getting the content out, discussing it with them. More of a operational sort of a job
Hmm.
in the starting phase, and
Hmm.
then you move to a senior account executive where you're discussing it with the influencers and discussing it with your account manager on of what kind of content should be made, on how it should be put out. And then where I am right now as an account manager, I
Hmm.
take care of all the budget spends on how much I'm giving to one influencer, how should the budget be allocated, how should I make my profits, and
Strategy
then
aspect of it.
strategy aspect of
uh,
the whole thing.
hmm.
So Yeah, I mean, in that sense, I'm just strategizing and also putting out what idea should go out. How should the mood board of this campaign look like? What should be the aesthetic? What should be, the say, for example, the outcome. Is it engagement that I'm looking at? Is it virality that I'm looking at?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it sales that I'm looking at? So
Okay.
this is something that brand tells me, and I come up with different solutions.
Okay. And that must involve like a lot of creative thinking and a lot of discussions with the client. Uh,
It does. It
and
does.
yeah,
So there's a
and
lot of
long
back and
working
forth.
hours. I'm sure
Yeah,
long working hours.
long working hours is the key to this.
Okay. And what about the growth path? Where do you see yourself going from here?
Yeah, so essentially, after maybe 3-4 years here, you know, getting to a account director position where I'm essentially not managing 2 clients or 5 clients. I'm essentially managing all the account manager on how they're doing work and
And
helping the
all the
company
clients.
on the profit basis, right?
Hmm.
So maybe there, and then I'd want to make a switch to the brand side where say someone like Canon understands that, hey, this guy understands the influencer bit and social media bit, I must get him, so that he now talks to these agencies where someone like
Okay. So
him
like
works and
working for
coordinates with them.
a brand directly.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense, right? It's like, okay, as an account manager, do you like, let's say if I am an account manager and you're an account manager, do you work on specific type of brands only? Like, let's say, are you working only on consumer centric, like consumer centric brands, for sure? But like, are you like, let's say if you're working on Canon, Nikon, Sony, similar brands, or they could be like as varied as possible, whatever your company is getting.
Yeah, absolutely. So this completely depends on company to company. So the
Mm,
manager I work with
mm,
spent his initial days just working on automobile, right? I have a
mm,
few of my colleagues who just work on telecom, but I personally work on multiple brands, be it phone brands, FMCG brands, food brands, right? Or
mm.
e-commerce brands. So I have catered to all of this, but they have the know-how and the full A to Z knowledge of that
Of
industry
one
and all.
specific industry also.
Correct. So what I've heard is when you go to a bigger agency, then there are 5 people involved into one account, which is one brand per se, right?
Mm.
Because they have those accounts completely with them. We have it
Okay.
on rollout basis. Now a brand will say that I have to do this campaign, and
Mm,
it will reach out to 5 agencies. Now the
mm.
agency giving them the best plan
Budget and
will essentially
uh,
win and get that.
uh,
So
okay,
yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah. Acha, one thing that I wanted to ask probably a little earlier also, which I can ask right now also, is
Hmm.
you mentioned that you got into the client servicing role and the key account executive account manager role later on. What was your interaction like? Was there a formal interview process? What did they like? Okay, if you were supposed to take an interview of for an account executive in your team right now,
Hmm.
what would be the 2 3 things that you would ask, or like a like key things that you would check in a like, account executive candidate?
So personally for me, I mean, more of uh, thinking in this role. I also like to believe that this is more of people management and ego management of sorts, where
Mm,
you're the middle point and you're dealing with your client and the influencers, and you're
mm,
getting both of them to a midway. So now essentially you're the people management skills come to the foreplay in how you're managing both sides. So you
mm,
cannot be someone who does not enjoy or cannot do a lot of calls or
mm.
cannot do a lot of talking, because there'll be a lot of pressure involved from both sides and
A lot
how
of
to handle
convincing.
situations. Correct. A lot of
Mm,
convincing how to handle situations in a very short span of time, because as I said, the one brief is going to five agencies, right? So you have to be on your toes to get that out as soon as possible.
yeah.
So when you're dealing with such short timelines, you have to deal with the client and the influencer in a manner when you can pull off both of these
So
aspects in the best manner
comfort with
possible.
people management. Comfort with people
Correct.
management is the first thing.
Correct.
What would be the second thing?
Second will be, for me, will be creativity for sure, on how you can come up with various ideas on a simple aspect, maybe how you're knowledgeable on what's going on in the world. This is actually very important on what's going on in the social media, what's going on in the meme world, what's going on YouTube, what's going on Twitter, because
Ah,
only when you know this can you plan campaigns, because campaigns are very relative to what's going on today. Say for example, if you remember, there was an ice bucket challenge, then there are other challenges that come up all the way, then there are dance steps that come up, and those just increase the brand visibility per se.
yeah, they make things viral.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. So it's amazing that you said that for you to be a good digital marketing executive, you need to know what's going around in the world. Because my next question is about what's going around in the world, and what's going around in the world is COVID-19. But my
Yeah.
question is not going to be about that. I have a bigger question to you, because your industry has been hit by something even bigger than the pandemic itself, which is
Hmm.
that TikTok is not there anymore. TikTok's gone
Correct.
from the Indian market. I assume, like, this is something that I read online, that TikTok's biggest market was India.
Yeah.
So I'm
Correct.
assuming a lot of influencer marketing efforts that brands wanted, and they must be putting in a lot of money there, or trying to understand
Hmm.
how they can reach that idea. What's the impact like? Just tell me what's the impact like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a void for sure. For sure, there's a huge void because, as you said, India is the largest market for TikTok. We have 80 million users monthly using TikTok. That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And because there is a void, and the problem here is that TikTok as a platform for creators was very cheap in terms of brands to leverage that, right? Now, for example, if I'm paying X rupees for Instagram video, I'll pay X by 2 for TikTok. And when it comes to YouTube, I'll pay 3x times of, this the same thing.
Okay.
So this is how the costing of all of this comes into play. So TikTok as a platform was cheaper. Now there's a lot of millennials at audience there, probably the highest, which I can target. It is also a very video heavy platform. So the retention of any brand on that platform for me, I believe, is really high because I heard this really simple thing, but I think it impacted me, where it said that when you see a billboard, you're just seeing a picture. When you're hearing a radio ad, you're just hearing that. Now, when it comes to a video, you're actually seeing and hearing the same. So the retention automatically increases.
Definitely.
And it is a 15-second format, so you can stay connected, you don't get bored, and you quickly jump onto the other, right?
Yeah.
And you can see a lot of content in a small span of time. So of course the impact is huge. But having said that, because it has created a void, other companies have jumped into, to fill in the space for TikTok, wherein it is a business opportunity for us to, leverage that and publicize what these guys are doing. So for sure that is there.
Are you talking about Reels or Instagram Reels? Are they any better, good, or are they the same thing?
Yeah, so personally, we haven't leveraged Instagram Reels right now. And Instagram as a platform will not need, brand promotions. But say, for example, I've heard of this app called Chingari, which is coming up, which is a copy or replica of what TikTok was doing, but Indian made. So now Chingari will maybe, reach out to us to promote them. So apps like these will now come into play because a lot of apps like TikTok went away, like Vigo Video and Hello and all
They're
of
also
these.
gone.
They're also gone.
I heard that Ghana, the music streaming platform, was also trying to get into the market. Like, I think that's what I read online, that Ghana was also trying to make a version of TikTok and put it out there. I think everyone recognizes this massive void that people have, and the users are ready and available because they're bored at home, right? So
Correct.
So I think there not being a TikTok is kind of a massive opportunity for an Indian brand to probably capture this market.
Sure. And TikTok used to reach out to a lot of regional places as well. you've
Yeah.
personally seen, right? So that has always been the case for TikTok, where it reaches out to, very small places in India where other
Yeah.
platforms like Instagram don't do, right?
Yeah.
So that is always there for.
I don't see Instagram or YouTube even like even with this wide, I don't see those platforms reaching out to the people that TikTok reached out to, right?
Not Instagram for sure, but YouTube
Uh,
definitely. I think YouTube is more prevalent in, the regional states and regional cities. So
is
that
that
is there.
because it's already installed on the phone? Do you think that's one of the reasons, or is YouTube also? Because I don't. Okay, so my what I mean by saying that YouTube or Instagram might not reach there, it's easy to watch YouTube. It's
Mm-hmm.
harder for someone in those regional or like tier 2 or tier 3 cities to start making YouTube videos and become active
Hmm.
like that as a creator on that platform.
Hmm.
So that's where I see like that's where the gap that TikTok created comes in, right? Because TikTok
Correct.
promoted them to start becoming creators and start making money off of that platform also.
Absolutely. That is so
uh,
definitely there. Yeah.
that void is going to stay there. I think jab tak
Hmm.
Chingari or any other company does not jump in, probably that is going to. Okay,
Hmm.
moving on to the next question. Do you want to add something? I'm sorry, if I cut you.
Uh, Not really. I think, uh, I mean, as you said, there is a void from TikTok, but during this whole COVID thing, uh, COVID has also pushed a lot of brands to come digital. It has actually
Yeah.
forced a lot of brands to get digital. But having
Okay.
said that, there are a lot of brands who, market and spend their marketing budgets, very calculatively. But there are a lot of brands who have jumped on board during these recent months, not in the initial ones for sure, because marketing is something that brands cut down whenever something like this happens. But we have been, personally, my company has been fortunate enough to get the get the kind of campaigns and brands. So that
Yeah.
is for sure there.
So you did see some sort of like in the initial months, you did see some clients being excessively cautious with their marketing budgets, but then since the months have gone by, companies have realized that the markets are going to reopen and again start
Yeah,
funding more.
absolutely.
Ah, okay, okay, that's great. Uh, cool. The next question is about the kind of money that you can make in this industry. I want you to be
Hmm.
as like I don't want people to become uncomfortable when I start talking about the aspect of money. So just tell me a vague idea about if I'm in my final year of college and if I'm trying to
Hmm.
think if this is a good industry, uh,
Hmm.
should I expect like uh, like what kind of salary can I expect? And uh, a follow-up question to that is, do you see major gains in this industry if you join this industry after you've done your MBA in marketing?
Hmm. Uh, okay. So first question, where we're talking about what are the monetary aspects and how well can you be
Hmm.
paid. So personally, I was lucky enough to be involved in two startups. Now,
Hmm.
influencer marketing as a concept has only recently arrived in India. So the
Hmm.
company I am in, is 7 years old. The previous company I worked in was 3 years old, right? So because it's a startup and the new companies eventually coming in are fairly new, the monetary aspects are fairly well, right?
Hmm.
Initial days, of course, it is as basic as someone from maybe a tier B tech firm will get. Uh, not as low as a TCS, but not as fancy as an Amazon per se, right?
Yeah.
So that is for sure there. But because you jump so quickly, is
Hmm.
when get rid of that void, maybe where your friends are. 1 year later, you'll be there. Uh, Not maybe in the starting first 3 months, but you will come before then to
Yeah.
that point. So that is there.
Because there's a learning curve to it, right? Because since this is a
Correct.
new industry, there's a learning curve. So once you
Hmm.
have that idea, there might not be that much competition
Hmm.
amongst the agencies, so you get that boost because of that.
Correct. And also
Yeah.
that, uh, it is still an upcoming field. It is not as somebody from a tech background where there is a herd fighting for, a, a, a seat. So that is for sure there. And also that this skill can be acquired. I think, the what I'm doing, if I have a creative bent of mine for sure, but I think if I was also to look at Instagram and YouTube and Twitter for n number of days and follow what's going on, I will get a sense of on how to plan campaigns, what are these brands doing, how to manage people. I think that takes a longer time. uh, but yeah.
And that's where probably the MBA also helps, right? People management skills and
Correct.
yeah. So do you think like, because why I asked this question to you is because I see MBA marketing being one of the like most talked about MBA in our country, right? Like many people go for this specific kind of MBA. So do you think and I'm being very specific about influencer marketing, because if it's such a new industry, do you think these MBA courses have caught up to what needs to be taught for specifically this industry, or is it just leadership and people management that you can acquire and use that in this field and grow?
Yeah, for me personally, I mean, I don't have the exact knowledge on how it will look like, but I think that it can be acquired. MBA is not required to get into particularly influencer marketing, right? But if you do want to leverage influencer marketing and all sorts of marketing from a brand's point of view, then I think MBA helps you with a lot of case studies and people management skills to manage all of that into one. So now influencer marketing, while is growing, at a tremendous speed year on year, it will be really big 3-4 years down the line, but and actually probably in 2021 only. So I think that will be more better in that case, and MBA colleges will start acknowledging that
Incorporating
fact.
it.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I don't think it is required really.
So getting that MBA in marketing would be viable for someone who's working in a brand who probably has to manage not just influencer marketing, but has to think about strategizing marketing in different verticals also, right? So
Correct,
that
correct.
can be good. Cool. That is actually quite helpful. Cool. Yash, so just to wrap things up and
Mhm.
possibly just imagine that you're talking to someone who is about to finish his or her 12th standard or is in college right now.
Mhm.
What could be some books, courses, or some random YouTube videos that you would encourage people to go through, or it could just be some quote that you see or some activity that you suggest that people need to do so that they can start building the skills required to see success in this specific field. So go
Hmm.
ahead. Just
So the primary aspect of this will be, and probably everybody will be, on top of it because everybody is on social media these days. But just to be aware of, what's going on, day-to-day basis. So if you're really active on Instagram, YouTube, and other social media platforms, and just know what news is going on, what challenges are going on, and how brands are leveraging it. Just see branded content. Just be aware of अच्छा इस इन्फ्लुएंसर ने ये ब्रांडेड कंटेंट डाला मैं स्वाइप नहीं मारूंगा मैं I'll just see on how they used it. Maybe just be aware
okay.
of that fact is really helpful for for people to leverage it. Say for example, if a Carrie Minati did a video of Asus recently,
Yeah,
Asus
I saw
ROG
that.
phone, right?
Ah.
So just be aware of how he promoted that, and he's a
Hmm.
big YouTuber, so
Hmm.
that will essentially get you the know-how on how creators are being leveraged. Other than that, I think the point that I missed because I came from an engineering background was the advertising aspect of this whole thing, because essentially this all boils down to advertising, right? Now, so I downloaded a really helpful masterclass from masterclass.com, which is by David Goodby and Rich Silverstein, advertising masterclass. So
Okay.
that's like a, I think 12, 13 episode 20-minute video course, which really helps you on thinking how the brands pulled up essentially taglines and leveraged it for brands.
Yeah. How
So
they
for
position
example,
their products.
correct.
Uh,
So there was a time where I think McDonald's lost their fight with Burger King to use the word Mac only in their burgers. So when they lost it, Burger King next day in their outlet says this is better than the Mac. They've named their burger this is better
oh,
than the
this.
Mac, and
Oh.
so imagine Mac Maharaja Mac but better. This is how they know. This was a really interesting way,
Ha,
right opposite a McDonald's store.
ha.
So I think to get to know how can these simple quirky things can be used, in a very quick way. So that is something that I really wanted
Useful
to know.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is something which I'm also always intrigued by. Like this is I was reading a case study about how now Coke as a brand has somehow positioned their brand in a way that you associate Coke with happiness. If you think
Hmm.
about it, whenever there's like if people are coming over, if you feel happy, if you think, oh, their tagline is open happiness, right? Open and
Correct.
open, something like that.
Hmm.
And like that, uh, like that brand association that we have with Coke, that whenever we're celebrating, we think about Coke. Whenever we're sad, we don't think about Coke.
Correct.
That is the advertising aspect of things, which really like is amazing, like, and that takes years and years of work and uh, research and execution from the advertising
Absolutely. Yeah.
team. Mm-hmm.
So that's really
Sure,
fascinating
that's
on, how a brand builds along. So that is where, and maybe an MBA probably comes into play to get that know-how on, how to position yourself today so that eventually 10 years down the line, you have that thought, of maybe considering Oppo as a luxury phone brand, but they'll have to start today to eventually go to that point.
probably how
Yeah.
OnePlus has positioned themselves from
Correct.
being they always positioned themselves as being the flagship phone, but they have now
Hmm.
actually got to a point where their phones cost that much. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That definitely is interesting, and those are good points. That's pretty much it, actually, Yash. That's all the questions I have. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Any final words? How was your experience?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
thanks a lot for having me. Essentially,
Huh.
I did not think I'll be able to speak that much. I'll have so many points. It was a good session, fairly fruitful session, and I think that this might be able to. I just hope this might be able to help a few people.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much.